July 17th, 1943. During the clash at the Kursk salient, another storm brews to the south along the Mius River and the scorched plains of eastern Ukraine. The Red Army throws a solid punch in an attempt to break through Hitler's southern wall and reclaim the Donbas region. Welcome to Panzer Campaigns Mius 43, a detailed, turn-based simulation of one of the Eastern Front's lesser-known yet fiercely contested operations. Developed by Wargame Design Studio, this title recreates the Donbas Strategic Offensive, a Soviet offensive that unfolded parallel to Operation Citadel at Kursk. In this video, we'll cover the contents of Panzer Campaigns Mius 43 and establish a plan for my campaign as I will command the armies of the Soviet Southern Front. Like in my previous Stalingrad videos, we'll learn the game's mechanics, the historical context, and the hard decisions that shaped this clash. Can the Soviets punch through the German Mius front and deliver a decisive offensive? Can the Wehrmacht's 1st Panzer Army hold the line with overstretched reserves? Every move counts, every decision matters, and the terrain, rivers, ridges, and ruined towns will tell a story of strategy and sacrifice. We will begin by reviewing the game via the store page. Once again, thank you for watching. Okay, so here is the store page for Mius 43. This is an absolutely free game. It's pretty much a demo for the Panzer Campaign series, and it's just a great way to get into the series, to learn about these type of games and dive into it. You know, it gives you a feel of what you are to expect from the Panzer Campaign series. And I absolutely, love that. It's 2 scenarios, and we'll take a look at that shortly. But it gives you plenty of time to learn about the mechanics of the game, to get a feel of it, to see if it's, up your alley or not. And so here we are with the description on the store page of Wargame Design Studio. Within days of the failure of the German strategic offensive at Kursk, the Soviets counterattacked the weakened Axis forces. The great operations at Orel and the 4th Battle of Kharkov were accompanied by a strong assault on the German defensive positions at the Mius River on the Black Sea. These heavily fortified positions had been held by the Germans since the previous winter, and any advance would be into heavily prepared defenses. This free game is designed to showcase the Panzer Campaign system. Be sure to use the Getting Started documentation to familiarize with the series. The features. Mius 43 includes 3 scenarios covering all sizes and situations, including a solo tutorial scenario, plus specialized versions for both head-to-head play and versus the computer AI. So with this, you can definitely have a play-by-email session with a friend, just learn about the game through here, learn about these amazing games. The Order of Battle file covers the Axis and Allied forces that participated in the campaign, with other formations added in for hypothetical situations. One of them was like, what if this certain SS unit showed up in time to help bolster the defenses? So that's the neat thing about these games. They can have hypothetical alternative scenarios that play with like what if situations. So it's pretty fun. I like that a lot. It, just helps with the creativity, imagination, and just gives you more stuff to play with. Submap features allows the main map to be subdivided into smaller segments for custom scenario creation, which is an absolutely gem thing about every single game you purchase, not just in Panzer Campaigns, but in other genres too. You have scenario editor, create your own hypothetical battles or whatever. All new images for unit art on both sides, including guns, infantry, and vehicles covering all of the forces of the Allied and Axis armies involved in the operation. Design notes which cover or include the production of the game, campaign notes, and a bibliography that includes the sources used by the design team to produce this simulation game. Mius 43 provides multiple play options, including play against computer AI, play by email, LAN, and Internet Live play, as well as 2-player hot seat, which is something I'm hoping to get my wife to do with me someday, but I don't know. It sounds like wishful thinking, but who knows? Maybe someday I could get her to, play these games with me. That'd be super cool. And the neat thing about Wargame Design Studio, so whenever any game you click on, whatever you want to look at, so like I'll go back to here, go back to Panzer Campaigns, and let's click on El Alamein Gold 42. So if we look at this one, I love this cover, by the way. That's the thing I love about these games, is like, it's like, the old style board games, box covers. It just gives that vibe, even though I never grew up with those kind of games. My dad did, but it gives that feel, and I absolutely love it. So we go to here, updates, and you can access it. You don't have to buy the game. You don't have to buy any of these games to access these files. So you can look at the latest update, change log, click on the user manual, and it'll pull up this page right here. You have a lot to look at. By the way, shout out to my fellow colleague in the Wargame community who is starting to work on a boot camp series for the Panzer Campaigns. You should absolutely check it out. I'll kind of post a screenshot here or something of his YouTube channel so you can find him. I really hope he does more boot camp videos. He just started it and uploaded one as of today regarding river crossing and how that whole aspect works with the game. Troop movements over rivers, canals, bridge establishments, pontoon bridges, those type of things. So you have that manual, and then we go back. We have Getting Started Guide. You can check that out, and just to see if is this a game I really want to get? Would I be interested in playing this? And you can read through everything. This is more of a tutorial. So every single Panzer campaign has pretty much a Getting Started, which is like a tutorial session. Teaches you about the game, gives you a feel, the terrain that this specific title is focused on. You have design notes, which is a lot of fun. That gives you, so if you look at the table of contents, why El Alamein, map challenge, order of battle, tanks by type, order of battle, organization and command, air, anti-air defenses, AT guns, scenario, and it gives you history, gives you book recommendations. And as you can tell, this game, I don't know when it came out. It was a long time ago, but you can see the old graphics, imagery right here, screenshots from the old Windows. old unit graphic art designs, which is now updated today. But you'll see like some of the documents themselves may be outdated, but it's still relevant, and you can still learn some amazing history. Explicit supply, war in the desert, at least insofar as longer mobile campaigns are concerned, was very much a war about supply, and you could just learn about cool stuff, get yourself immersed, before you play. So that's the beauty of that. And so we'll go back to Mius 43. Give me a second. Best-selling because it's a free game. And you can ask questions, updates, and downloads, which is all part of the files. But yeah, player guide, design notes, and planning map. This is fun. So this gives you the whole map of what you'll be getting in the game. And we have the Mius River right here. I'll highlight it by, with a screenshot or something. But this is where the German defenses will be. I think the Germans started building defenses along the Mius River in 1941, late summer or maybe late fall of 1941. Like at the very end or right after Operation Barbarossa. I could be wrong. I'll pull it up and put a screenshot here on this video. But it's a very, I had no clue, but this is okay. I'm going in 1,000 places, but this is why I love these games, because I'm always learning something new. So the Mius defensive in 1940, or offensive, should I say, along the Donbas region and eastern Ukraine, modern day eastern Ukraine, was something I wasn't familiar with. I had no clue about until I played this demo. And it was just a neat thing to learn about, another neat offensive operation battle, another piece of World War II history that I had no idea about. And that's what made it fun. And that's another reason why I love these games so much, because I get to learn new things all the time. And it's just very rewarding. It's a very rewarding experience. And I just have to give a shout out to Wargame Design Studio and the legacy they've upheld for John Tiller. They are updating these games. The older titles are constantly creating newer titles. Like recently we had Poland 39 released, and it's incredible. I think the developer spent 5 years or so working on this game, the designer of this game. And it's just incredible work, as you can see through the screenshots here. And I absolutely love that, how they're always updating, they're always bringing new stuff. And it feels like it's getting more and more recognition. There's more and more popularity on this, these type of games, and that makes me happy. It could be an age thing for me also. As I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate these games more and more. But yeah, now I will go into showcasing you Mius 43, and we'll get started with our scenario there. Just give you an idea, give you a rundown how this game works. So let's begin with the designer notes for this game, Mius 43, which is something that comes with every single game by Wargame Design Studio. Whether it's Panzer Campaigns, Civil War series, 3 of the titles, or maybe 4 we have for the World War I series, and so much more. The beauty of these games is the amount of research that goes into it, and yeah, just learning about what you're going into, what is the historical context behind it, and it just makes it more fun, at least in my opinion. So let's go over this file that describes the campaign, the demo, and just all the notes. It's pretty short. You can see the old unit card artwork, which I don't know when this game came out. I mean, could have been early 2000s. But either way, it's still relevant, and I still think it would be fun to just read it off and get ourselves immersed. The winter of 1942 through 43 went badly for the Axis. The Sixth Army was surrounded and surrendered at Stalingrad. This action is covered in Panzer Campaigns Stalingrad 42. A huge hole was torn in the German line, plugged by whatever units could be found. Through the rest of winter, a seesaw battle raged in the southern part of the Russian front, including Russian offensives codenamed Operations Star and Gallop. These were followed by German counterattack, often referred to as Manstein's backhand blow. These battles are the subject of the newest Panzer Campaign titles, Kharkov 43, published by Wargame Design Studio. After the front was stabilized, both sides built up once again for a summer offensive. The Russians prepared a deep defensive zone around a large bulge in the line known as the Kursk salient. They were content to build up their defenses and let the Germans strike first to batter away, dissipating their strength before taking the offensive themselves. The German attack came in early on July on the north and south shoulders of the salient. These battles are covered in Panzer Campaigns Kursk 43. Kursk, or Operation Citadel, is generally considered the greatest tank battle in history. With news, the British, American, and Canadian armies had landed in Sicily, topic of Panzer Campaign Sicily 43, and intelligence predicting imminent Soviet counteroffensives. Hitler cancelled Operation Citadel. He then dispersed his strong panzer forces. The most powerful force, the 2nd SS Panzer Corps, was repositioned south of the Belgorod-Kharkov sector as a reserve to deal with the anticipated Soviet attacks on the southern front. One of the SS divisions was loaded onto a rail transport to be sent to the southern Europe to face the Allies in Italy. However, a few days after the Germans began their attack on the Kursk salient, the Soviets prepared to assault the heavily fortified German Mius line in the southern Ukraine. The Mius River flows south through the Russian steppes north of Rostov, where it empties into the Sea of Azov. The colored miniature map superimposed on the large-scale battle area map shows where the battle took place. The goal of the operation was to strike toward the city of Stalino. The sector to be attacked was 50 kilometers long and was defended by the new German Sixth Army. After the destruction of Stalingrad, the Sixth Army was recreated by Hitler using any available units. However, it was never as powerful as its predecessors that drove deep into the Russian territory, almost capturing Stalingrad in the previous winter. The Soviet plan was to break the front line with the 5th Shock and 28th Armies, and then exploit the expected success using the 2nd Guards Army as a follow-up force. The German commander, General Hollet, ordered his reserve division, the 16th Panzer Grenadiers, to increase its readiness. On the 15th of July, he also ordered, don't know the number of that corps, and the 4th Corps to detach a motorized regimental Kampfgruppe as an additional reserve. Hollet himself went to observe the front. He visited the corps and division HQs and the regimental HQs of both the 294th and 336th Infantry Divisions. Concerned with his findings, later that day, Hollet convinced Army Group South to release another unit, the 23rd Panzer Division, to be an additional 6th Army Reserve. The 23rd Panzer Division was instructed to expect early commitment to any sector along the line that was threatened. Satisfied he had done all he could, the general and his chief of staff proceeded to personally supervise the final map exercise at headquarters in preparation for the expected forthcoming battle. On the opposing side, the Soviets made little effort to hide their preparations. 2nd Guards Mechanized Corps completed its concentration northwest of Dubrovsky, and those elements around Kuibyshevo moved closer to the front. With the results of the Luftwaffe long-range aerial reconnaissance and information gleaned from deserters captured along the front lines, Hulett concluded the attack would come on July 17th. And then it came. Several rifle and guard rifle divisions began the assault at a critical sector on the boundary between the 27th and whatever that number is, Corps, exactly where Hulett predicted and previously visited. This was an infantry assault in force intended to overwhelm the defenders. In the early hours, Hulett effectively countered the enemy concentrations using artillery opportunity fire and deadly accurate direct fire from his frontline troops. The German defense line, while not nearly as extensive as those created by the Russians on the Kursk salient, were up to 6 kilometers deep in places. Thus, while the Russians attacked and had desired effect on distracting the Germans, it did not catch them by surprise, as happened the previous winter along the flanks of Stalingrad front. By noon on the first day of the battle, many of the forward battalions reported the Russians had overrun their frontline positions. In the southern sector, the Russians were west of Gustafeld, a town 5 kilometers behind the front line. Russian tanks, although limited in their initial employment, provided close support to infantry units by targeting the German bunkers with their armored-piercing rounds. Wave after wave of Soviet infantry fell upon the Germans. Only resolute efforts by the German frontline units, supported by accurate artillery fire, prevented the major collapse on the front. However, the Soviets began to slowly wear down the defenders, and their numerical superiority prevailed as the day wore on. On the German left flank, the sector was dominated by several hills. Here, the Russians were halted by a series of quick counterattacks by division and corps reserves, supported by assault guns of the Stug 210s. Despite German planning and advanced preparations, the Luftwaffe was virtually non-existent throughout the first day. No air support was available to the German frontline defenders, while overhead Soviet aircraft roamed the skies unhindered. Anticipating the continued Soviet offensive at Dmitrievka and attempting to take pressure off the beleaguered frontline infantry, Hulett decided to counterattack with his only available reserves, the 16th Panzer Grenadier Divisions. Given the critical situation at the front, he did have the luxury of waiting for the 23rd Panzer, still en route, northwest of the battle area and scheduled to arrive later in the day on July 18th. The 16th Panzer Grenadiers were ordered to assemble southwest of Kalinovka, where it would strike northeast toward Hill 168. Hulett's decision to attack early was based on 3 considerations. First, he believed the infantry might not be able to stand if he did not act quickly. Secondly, the Soviets were moving another powerful force, the 4th Mechanized Corps, toward this sector. Finally, chances of success were greater if the action was taken before the Soviets could consolidate their gains. On the morning of July 18th, screened by division recon, the 16th Panzer Grenadier Division attacked with the 116th Panzers in the center, the 156th Panzer Grenadier on the left, and 60th Panzer Grenadier on the right. Their goal was to disrupt the renewed Soviet offensive. Although initially successful, the attack quickly ran into difficulties. The 156th Panzer Grenadier on the left was hit by a powerful Russian tank force, stopping it in its tracks. Forced to go over the defense, the Panzer Grenadiers called for assistance from the rest of the division. The Panzers quickly pulled back from the center, regrouped, and then were sent to stabilize the front line. The result was Hill 168.5 remained in Russian hands. One below-strength Panzer Grenadier Division was no match for the Soviet Mechanized Corps. Considering the outcome, it would have been prudent for Holdet to wait for the 23rd Panzer and then use both formations to form a strong mobile defense. Although the goal of capturing Hill 168.5 was not attained, the Germans took satisfaction in the damage they inflicted on the on the Russian tanks of the 2nd Mechanized Corps. To the north of Gerasimova Valley, the Soviets were more successful against the beleaguered 306th Infantry Division, located on the far left of the German line. At no time did this sector realize any relief from the Panzer Grenadiers counterattacked in the south. Here the line broke and Russian infantry captured Hill 213. They then pressed forward, overrunning the towns of Mianovka and Stepanovka. This created a serious crisis for the Germans, who were once again facing a major enemy breakthrough to the west. There were no panzer reserves at hand, but once again, luck smiled on the Germans. The Russian advance ran directly into a rear area fortified sector, complete with strong bunkers and anti-tank trenches established as a training area before the battle. Seizing the opportunity, the Germans rallied and brought the Soviet advance under control. On the evening of July 18th, the sorely needed 23rd Panzer Division arrived. The division recon was immediately sent forward to screen the division while it assembled the combat elements. With only 55 panzers, the division was not overly strong. However, in contrast to the 20 operational tanks left in the Panzer Grenadiers, it was by far the strongest and freshest force the Germans had available. Higher command suggests Holdet employed this panzer division as a mobile reserve. Ignoring the advice, he ordered an immediate attack, determined to regain lost ground before the Russians could dig in and consolidate their gains. While Holdet concerns were understandable, the result of the attack, with another powerful force being squandered, indicated higher command was correct. Both sides regrouped on July 19th. On July 20th, the Germans attacked again, this time using 16th Panzer Grenadier and the 23rd Panzer together. The action proved in vain and the units were decimated. On the 21st of July, with both sides nearing exhaustion, the lead elements of the Russian 4th Guards Mechanized Corps began to arrive at the front near Dmitrievka. This was a considerable force of over 200 armored vehicles manned with fresh troops. Facing them, the German reserve divisions were now down to only 36 operational panzers between them. This time, however, it was the Russians' turn to squander armored reserves. The few German panzers dealt with the Russian tanks as they arrived in a penny packet-sized forces, one grouped after another. As the battle seesawed back and forth, several villages changed hands throughout the day. The Russians gained the upper hand in some places where the Germans could not muster a force to repulse them. Although neither side had won a decisive victory by nightfall, the Germans had inflicted much heavier damage on the Soviet mobile forces. Up to this point in the battle, the Sixth Army had narrowly survived one crisis after another. Once again, Holdet decided to gamble and threw his remaining force right into the center of the line. His army was tiring and running critically short of everything from fuel to ammo. In the early morning dawn of July 22nd, the Russian attack began again and escalated throughout the day. Once again, with grim efficiency, the German artillery and anti-tank guns poured withering fire into the attackers. By the end of the day, the German units were mere shells of their previous strength. The whole 16th Panzer Grenadier Division was now down to an effective strength of 550 men, all suffering high battle fatigue. By the following morning on July 23rd, the crisis from the Germans had passed. There were no large-scale Russian attacks at any point along the front. Instead, the Soviets were content with probing recon in many places, none of which were intended to gain significant ground. Both sides began to rebuild for the next phase of the battle. German panzer recovery teams performed near miracles in repairing damaged tanks. Luckily for them, the Russians were too exhausted from their previous efforts to take advantage of the German weakness. During the fading days of July, the Russians were unable to mount any sort of attack. In no better shape, the Germans merely held out for the arrival of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. This force would be called upon to reestablish the line along the Mius in the next phase of the battle in August. Note, anyone wishing to experiment with Panzer Campaigns scenario editor may find it interesting to research the August counterattack of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. The SS units are included in this campaign, in this Panzer Campaigns Mius 43 demo order of battle. The 6th Army had weathered the storm, for them a firework victory. Their saga would continue. Alright, that was a very informative designer note, and I'm not sure if they updated it at all, especially any of some minor historical context here and there, but regardless, I had fun going through that, and I hope you all enjoy that segment too. That's something I would like to do in my future videos whenever I cover other Panzer Campaign titles. But so here we are with Mius 43. We have the getting started scenario, which is like the tutorial, 9 turns. It just teaches you about the game, and it's great alongside with the getting started guide, which if you can preferably print that out or have it up on your tablet, right next to you along with the computer, it's great to have, and it just gives you detailed ideas of how the game works, troop movement works, attack, assault, all that stuff. So we will now look at the Mius front campaign. We have 2 of them here. Both are 66 turns, so it is going to be quite a while, and this is something I really want to dedicate my time to for this channel as well, because one, it's a free game. It's an entry-level game for new players, for newcomers to come in, pick themselves up a copy, download it, register the serial key, and just learn the game and have fun. I think it's a great map too. I think it's a great way to just get into the series. And so with that being said, I want to do the alternative scenario, which is the early arrival of the SS. So we have the scenario briefing here. This is an alternative version of the historical campaign that features the early arrival of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. They began arriving in the area on the 27th of July, only to find a thin gray line of walking dead They began arriving in the area the 27th of July, only to find a thin gray line of walking dead was all that stood the way of the next Soviet advance. This scenario will examine what effect that an early arrival of the SS divisions would have had in the battle. So I think this would be interesting. It would create more of a challenge for me playing as the Soviets. If we look at the regular one, gives the scenario briefing, what we just read over from the designer notes PDF file. It's really good stuff. It's fun. I love reading this. But yeah, this is going to be good. So let's get started and load this up. So I'm going to keep the rules as they are, and manual as the Russians, automatic with fog of war for the Axis, and let's pull it up. Air units are available. 1 out of 40 HQs are out of command. Wish I can figure out what that is. We have a wireless intercept at 28.7, which is right here. So definitely an HQ unit right there. So here's the line that we got along the Mius front. Quite extensive defensive here. We have Hill 218, Hill 233, 213.9, and Lupenska, Kolpakovka, Alexievka, Bolshaya, Kirsanovka. Got some pretty cool names here. So, we got these guys right here, the 13th Guards Mechanized Brigade, part of the 2nd Guards Army. So, they're part of the 2nd Guards. They're part of the 5th Shock Army. These guys are part of the 5th Shock Army. 5th Shock Army. 32nd Guards Tank Brigade. So yes, we have a lot to play with here. A lot of strong units to play with here. Infantry values are decent. Defenses are pretty good. And what about my armored units? Find some of them. Here we go. They got some pretty good scores here too. Except this older model of the T-70A. Got T-34s. Very good tanks. Yeah, the Germans had a hard time with them throughout the war. I remember reading about that. They had very good armor too. Very good armor. So my plan, looking at this, let me see what the objectives are. So this on Hill 213.9 is worth 200 points. Stepanovka is worth 200. This is worth 50. Marinovka. So I definitely want to focus through here. Dmitrievka, that seems like a pretty strong access defensive points here. All along the Mius. And down here, like I said, we got 66 turns. So unlike my the Volga's Reach scenario of just a mere 8 turns, we will have a lot of time to play with here. And I'm curious to see how that early arrival of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps will shape things up on my end. It's just a gorgeous map. I love looking at this. I think there's a way to hide units, to hide unit cards. Let me find it. Yeah, there we go. It's pretty neat. A lot to play with. A lot of ridges and hills, canals here and there, I think. Streams. Yeah, streams. Secondary stream. Oh, this is part of the Mius River. And yeah, we'll have a lot to dive into. So, my plan is, let me think a little bit. Probably just put pressure along the whole front, but definitely focus the bulk of my forces through Dmitrievka and these guys through Kubyshevo. These guys belong to the 2nd Guards Army, 13th Guard Rifle Corps. Definitely have them focused through here. And then, how many points is this worth? This is worth 500. A whopping 500, 250. So yeah, if we can just focus on that, the more points the better. That would be good. That is my plan. And how much artillery do we got? We got quite a bit to soften up their defenses. Not a whole lot, but we got enough. Oh, and we got some Katyusha rockets. Very good, very good. Pretty sure they are. Yeah. Got some mortars. These guys can do good against infantry. I'm not sure how much of an effect on the bunkers though, because the Germans have quite a bit of bunkers all around here. And I'm sure they're going to dig in more as we advance more and more. So, and then what about air units? We got some air units available that will come in handy. Oh, this is exciting. This is very exciting. Yeah, I'll have a lot to play with here. And I wonder, 2nd Guards Army, 2nd Guards Mechanized Corps, yeah, these guys are pretty good and pretty important. And then we got more. Yeah, we have a bunch of infantry to throw at them. A bunch. So hopefully I would be able to get through these initial defenses pretty quickly. But the Germans have also placed tons of minefields all throughout the lines, as expected, since it is a defensive line. So we're going to have fun. Yeah, I think this will be good. To call it now, this video has gone long enough as it is. But on the next video, which I will record right after I'm done putting this together, we will begin our attack. And then, of course, I will have my next, The Volga has reached episode 4 from the Stalingrad campaign. And just keep going. A lot of cool things. I definitely have fun just making these videos, learning history along the way, finding appropriate photographs and maps to put alongside with the videos. So it's a lot of fun, but it is time consuming. But anyhow, thank you all for watching. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode from Mius 43 as we begin our assault against the German southern wall in eastern Ukraine. So take care, you guys. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.